Well, it's no secret that big tech companies like Meta have been censoring critical information to its users for years. And this week we finally heard from Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg admitting it. He revealed that Facebook bowed to pressure coming from the Biden-Harris administration in a letter to the House of Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. Mark Zuckerberg said that the White House repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humour and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. He said that this pressure was wrong and says that he regrets that we were not more outspoken about it at the time. He said that we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Well, who on earth believes that? But the pressure he speaks about sounds a lot like bullying, which adds up when you look at Kamala Harris's track record of staff who leave as soon as they can. Now, it's not just COVID content that Facebook was ordered to censor. The social media company censored a massive story the New York Post broke about criminal evidence that was found on Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, 4 years later, Mark Zuckerberg admits that Facebook should not have done that. I'm sorry, Mark Zuckerberg, but the damage has been done. There are still people who associate that story with Russian disinformation, and there's not a bone in my body that trusts him anymore. And I know I'm not alone in saying that. Just look at the reaction on X. Dozens of people are labelling him a snake, a fraud. There are even calls for him to be put behind bars. Joining me in the studio is boss lady, CEO and founder of Small Business Women Australia, Amanda Rose. Lovely to speak with you. What do you make of what Mark Zuckerberg had to say?
I think he's a coward. I think to say, oh, sorry, I was pressured into doing this. Pressured into what? Into literally encouraging and being a part, actually facilitating hate on social media, misinformation about people's lives and livelihoods. And remember, this is during COVID. This is when people were making a choice whether they should inject themselves with something, and so they wanted to do their research, and so they were genuinely looking for that. And if anyone said anything outside of what was approved by the government or by the globalists, it was like, no, we've got to shut it down. That's unacceptable. And it's also a really good sign for the everyday person to stop believing what you see online. You know, just because it's, you know, the majority online says one thing doesn't mean other things aren't being blocked.
That's right.
So but he should be punished for this, absolutely. But I think he's freaking out. I think he thinks Trump's going to get in. And so if he does, and he realises that you were a big part of the misinformation and the hate, the divisiveness that was created during COVID was horrific. And that's why, if anything like that happens again, we need to shut these places down and not use them.
Yeah, I think that what he did really added to the social divide that we all saw, we all experienced. So is that your assessment of the timing of this? We're getting closer to the election, so this is why we've all of a sudden we're seeing this letter.
Yeah, people are starting to panic. Oh no, I think Trump might win, so let's be on the good side here so I don't get arrested.
Too late.
Or it is too late. And to say I was pressured, you have a responsibility. You handpicked.
He's the boss.
Exactly. And it's not pressure. I'd like to know if I always say follow the money. I'd like to see if there's a connection to money in some capacity there, whether it's through grants or tax breaks or so forth, because you don't just say to the government, okay, I'll do what you say because I feel pressured. There's usually a financial incentive with that. But you have a massive responsibility. But yes, he's freaking out because I think Trump would, well, not just Trump, actually, maybe RFK, because he was trying to push that information that got blocked.
He was.
Very much. And now we look back and think, actually, he was right about a lot of it.
We're going to talk about RFK Jr. in just a moment, but I want to get your thoughts on Pavel Durov. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but bear with me. We all know who he is. He's the founder of the messaging app Telegram. He's been arrested and charged in France as authorities make further investigations into alleged criminal activity on the encrypted messaging app, including child abuse material and drug trafficking. Amanda, some are welcoming this. Others say that this is an attack on free speech and this is an overreach of power. What are your thoughts?
I'd say it's an attack on the fact that it's the only platform that you could actually communicate that misinformation we just talked about that Facebook was blocking. Telegram was sharing it. Right. Telegram allows people to communicate all different types of information, research, thoughts, opinions, kind of what it's supposed to be like, right? Freedom of speech, but also factual information. And what's interesting is that they can say to someone, there's child trafficking, happening on this really. So they can't get rid of porn and child porn off the internet. They can't get rid of that with, Facebook, and they've been responsible for sharing images. Google could be responsible. All these other places are responsible, but they're targeting the one platform that has been the biggest supporter of free speech through the last, say, 5 years.
Fair point. Look, it's been around 6 weeks since Donald Trump was shot in the face and almost killed on live television. And what have we learnt today? A bit about the gunman's search history, as well as a photograph of a backpack and some information that doesn't really tell us anything about what the heck actually happened that day and how on earth the Secret Service failed so badly to keep Donald Trump safe. Now, it's interesting, Donald Trump has praised the people who kept him safe that day, but he was a little bit more critical during this interview with Dr. Phil.
When this happened, people would ask, whose fault is it? I think to a certain extent it's Biden's fault and Harris's fault. And I'm the opponent. Look, they were weaponizing government against me. They brought in the whole DOJ to try and get me. They weren't too interested in my health and safety. They were making it very difficult to have proper staffing in terms of Secret Service.
Amanda, is he right? What do you make of what he had to say?
I think he's right. And the thing is, they always say America's the leaders of the free world and, it's a safe country. And then something like that happens. And then there's this confusion over how and who and what. But yes, it is the responsibility of the administration. But it is such a setup. And what worries me is so many things are happening in plain sight right now, right on live TV. And then people will just say, oh, no, it was an accident. Oh, no, it was that person over there, and just walk away. We as a people need to push harder and question more. I think we've been desensitised. I think we've been just give up, especially during COVID when we tried to push and ask questions. People said, just don't bother, you'll get hated on. I think we need to bring that back. We need to push harder and say, well, no, that's an unacceptable response from the government. We want to know more. It can't be what it looks like. There needs to be more there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's just wild to me that he was almost killed 6 weeks ago, and so many people just want to forget that it ever happened. We can just focus on TikToks for Kamala Harris. But look, massive news over the weekend as we witnessed a Kennedy endorse Donald Trump. RFK Jr. says that he wants to make America healthy again after he dropped out of the race and, of course, lost his Secret Service protection. But he says that he and Donald Trump will investigate corruption in regulatory agencies while addressing the rise in chronic diseases in the United States. What do you make of his move?
Look, I love it, but what he's up against are the pharmaceutical companies, which a majority which are just pushing drugs to make money, right? And the government's usually involved in that, saying, yes, we'll support that, or we'll make sure that that legislation gets through. So he's going to be fighting a lot of people within government, a lot of large companies that have pretty much gotten away with a lot. So he's taken them to court. I think people have forgotten that. RFK has a reputation of taking pharmaceutical companies and other big corporations who ruin the environment to court and won. So if he's coming in, that's who he'll target. And they're the ones that usually don't like being targeted and can react in a very vicious way. So I'm all for it, and I think it's great. Maybe this is the turning point that everyone's prayed for, that we might have a focus back on healthy lifestyle, healthy eating, healthy mental health, bring back hope, bring back the small business, bring back the family unit to work together as a community. That would be refreshing.
Well, the left-wing media has been in meltdown over RFK Jr.'s endorsement of Donald Trump, and they haven't even tried to hide it. Just take a look at CNN cutting off its live coverage of RFK Jr. as soon as he mentioned that Kamala Harris hasn't done an interview.
They would be astonished to learn of a Democratic Party presidential nominee who, like Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days.
We've been listening to independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from Phoenix outlining what led him to his quixotic quest for the White House.
Oh, interesting timing. And here's CNN's commentary of the historic event.
This was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And trying to get any logic out of that is good luck with that. Because it's, one, you can't understand what he says. Two, if you can't understand what he says. And I'm reminded of a line in Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles when somebody gets up and gives indecipherable speech. He says, who can argue with that? That's authentic frontier gibberish, and that's exactly what that is.
Amanda, are you surprised?
Not surprised, but you know what's really annoying? These are grown men, right? Willing to follow a really foolish script to keep their job, to push it something that's just, I mean, the language is actually just so ridiculous. Are they threatened by RFK's truth or his masculinity? I don't know what it is, but grow up and speak the truth or say nothing at all.
Yeah, I think they're threatened by the truth.
Absolutely.
You just listen to what RFK Jr. had to say. It was such a powerful speech.
Simple. The truth is always so simple, yet it scares so many people. Maybe it should be an opportunity for people to say, okay, whether I like or dislike the guy,
Maybe listen.
Yeah, listen. And it's okay to change what you originally thought because you were potentially brainwashed by the propaganda that Facebook just admitted that they allowed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you see someone who's been a Democrat, who comes from one of the most famous political Democratic family in the United States, is actually raising the alarm and saying why he needs to endorse Donald Trump, maybe you should actually listen to what he has to say.
Exactly. And just because he endorsed Donald Trump doesn't mean he has to like everything about him.
Absolutely.
It's about, I like that he's going to help bring back the economy. And because a lot of the Democrats are rich and elite, they have no idea what it means to not be able to put food on the table. So we really shouldn't be listening to anything they say.
Amanda Rose, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.